The day it happened was my birthday. A storm was raging, and thunder cracked across the sky. All it took was a single text from Luna, his first love, saying she was scared of the thunder, and Julian, the man I had loved for 7 years, pulled over and left me on the side of the highway. I walked for what felt like an eternity, 40 kilometers in the biting wind and rain. My feet were a raw, blistering mess, each step a fresh wave of agony. When I finally limped into the city, exhausted and soaked to the bone, I looked up. There, on the largest screen in the glittering heart of the city square, a news report was playing. Julian had just spent $1 million on a grand gesture for Luna. Later, hobbling into the warm glow of a high-end bar to find him, I overheard his friend laughing. Who was it that ditched his own engagement party because of a phone call? Who bailed on his own 3rd anniversary dinner just to deliver a bottle of water to Luna? Aren't you afraid Vivian will find out? Another voice asked. Julian just scoffed, clinking his glass against his friend's. Does it matter? Vivian will be my wife, that's a given. But the moon of my heart will only ever be my little Luna, the girl I raised. My fingers tightened around the sonogram report in my pocket, the paper crinkling in my fist. A chasm ripped through my heart, cold and absolute. I felt nothing but a hollow emptiness. I pulled out my phone and dialed my grandfather. That marriage proposal you mentioned before, I said, my voice dead. I accept. Months later, when he saw me with another man, matching wedding bands gleaming on our fingers, Julian, who was always so composed, finally broke. His eyes were bloodshot with a desperate, frantic light. He never understood that a love that arrives too late is the most worthless thing of all. Coming out of the hospital, the afternoon sun of the next day felt unnaturally bright. I called my grandfather. About that marriage alliance you brought up. I'll consider it. Just as I hung up, Julian walked through the door of our apartment. What marriage? He asked, a frown creasing his brow. Nothing, I deflected smoothly, the lie coming easily to my lips. An old classmate is getting married and sent an invitation. You have to take me with you when the time comes, he said, buying it completely. I paused. We'll see. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to my hair. The cloying scent of gardenia, Luna's signature perfume, enveloped me. Vivian, I had a crazy busy day. I'm going to go shower, he murmured. But I knew the truth. He wasn't busy with work. He was busy with Luna. We had been together for 7 years. Last month, at our engagement party, Luna had called, complaining of cramps. With that one call, Julian abandoned me in a room full of our guests and rushed to her side. Earlier this year, he stood me up on our 3rd anniversary. After I had waited alone at the restaurant for 5 hours, I received a text from Luna, oops, sorry Vivian. I went hiking and forgot to bring water. You know how Julian is, he heard about it and insisted on driving all the way out here to bring me some himself. In the beginning, Julian would at least try to explain. Are you jealous again? Luna is my deceased best friend's daughter. I have to take care of her. It's my duty to him. I would challenge him. Are you planning to take care of her for the rest of your life? What else would I do, he'd retort. Lately, his patience had worn thin. Get rid of those filthy thoughts, Vivian. What I have with Luna is purely familial. It's clean. For 7 years, I had asked him to marry me, time and time again. And time again, something always came up. Julian always had an excuse. The first year, he said his career was just starting. The second year, he said we were still young. The third year, he said Luna was still little, and he worried our marriage would make her feel abandoned and insecure. He promised we would get married as soon as Luna started dating. 7 years. He had considered everyone's feelings, everyone's circumstances, except for mine. I rested a hand on my still flat stomach, my eyes glued to the television screen, lost in a daze. Wow, Mr. Chin built this statue for Vivian even before they're married, spending $3 million in the most expensive part of the city. This is the most beautiful love story in the world, the reporter gushed. The whole world knew of Julian's grand love for me. He had spent a fortune to erect a massive sculpture in the city center, a giant, sculpted hand holding aloft a luminous, stylized moon. He named it Moon in my palm, a symbol of his undying love for me. Our friends were envious. They spoke of his deep, unwavering devotion. For a long time I believed it too. But the truth was, after 7 years of waiting, I still didn't have a proposal. And the moon in my palm wasn't for me. The night before, lying in a sterile hospital bed, I had scrolled through Luna's social media. She had posted a picture of the statue. I knew he would never forget his little moon. The best welcome home gift ever. She had tagged Julian's private account, adding a playful, cloying caption, "When will I get to be your one and only, out in the open for everyone to see?" Beneath it, Julian had replied with a single, damning image, a close-up of the statue's palm. Barely visible, etched into the metal, were the initials, JC Loves LX. Look at that. Such pure, familial affection. Now, standing in our living room, Julian gazed at the statue on the TV and then turned to me, his eyes full of feigned emotion. "I want the whole world to see how much I love you, my little moon." When I first met Julian, he was at the lowest point of his career. He used to say I was the light in his darkest hour. The night we made our relationship official, he had kissed me with a passion that felt real, his eyes holding a depth I couldn't quite decipher. To me, he whispered, "You are unique. You are the only little moon in my heart." That night, he held me close and whispered the name Little Moon over and over again against my skin. "Do you like the surprise?" he asked me now, referring to the statue. "I love it," I managed, a bitter smile twisting my lips. He had really gone this far for her, erecting a public monument to their forbidden love, right in the middle of the city for all to see. If I weren't his fiancée, I might have even been moved by the romance of it all. But now, I stared into his dark, shining eyes and wondered, as you look at that screen, as you look at me, who is the little moon you are really speaking to? "Oh, right. Luna asked me to give you this," Julian said, pulling a small box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a pair of pearl earrings. "Bloody pearls," he said with admiration. "I hear they're incredibly rare and hard to find. Little Luna really went to a lot of trouble to find something to make you happy." The blood drained from my face. My entire body went cold, and a violent tremor ran through me. When I was a child, after my mother remarried, my stepfather would get drunk. One night, he crept into my room. My mother, trying to protect me, was stabbed by him over and over. As she lay dying, she screamed at me to run. A single pearl earring, ripped from her ear and stained with her blood, fell at my feet. It became the defining trauma of my life, a psychological shadow I could never escape. Julian saw my reaction and realization dawned on his face. He remembered. "Vivian, Luna didn't know," he stammered, his expression panicked. "I cut him off." "But you did." His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Finally, he managed, "I'll buy you something else. Just don't be angry, okay? Don't bother. Not with a gift, not with anything." It was all too late. My uncharacteristic coldness seemed to agitate him. He loosened his tie, a flicker of impatience in his eyes. "Can you not make a big deal out of everything? It's just a pair of earrings. Is it really worth all this?" "Worth it?" Of course, it was worth it. My hands were still shaking, and my eyes burned. "Have you forgotten how my mother died?" Julian froze. He seemed to recall the deep depression I had fallen into after her death, and a flicker of guilt crossed his face. After a moment, he pulled me into an embrace, murmuring apologies, trying to soothe me. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. I've been so swamped with work I've become a mess. I didn't mean to snap at you. Please, don't be angry." We rarely fought, and on the few occasions we did, he was always the first to back down. My voice was hoarse as I replied, almost as if trying to convince myself, "It's okay. It's not your fault." Later that night in bed, as his kisses trailed down my neck, he suddenly grew cautious. "Vivian," he whispered, his voice soft in the darkness. Can you do me a favor? Don't mention this to Luna. If she asks, just tell her you love the earrings, okay? She would feel so guilty if she knew she brought up such a painful memory for you. An invisible, arctic wind seemed to blow through the room, freezing me solid. In that moment, I couldn't speak. Even as he held me, his heart was somewhere else entirely, protecting his little moon. Okay, I whispered back. He kissed my lips, pleased. I knew you were the most understanding person. Understanding. Gentle. Generous. Words that once felt like terms of endearment now felt like daggers, each one piercing my heart. Tears seeped from the corners of my eyes. Julian, thinking I was still grieving for my mother, began to hum a soft lullaby, a tune he often used to help me sleep. The next day, Luna arrived with a cake, claiming she wanted to give me a proper birthday celebration. The moment she walked in, she wrapped her arms around Julian's neck with practiced ease and kissed his cheek. Julian, I've missed you so much. Even Julian, who was usually so reserved, seemed momentarily stunned before a smile subconsciously lifted the corners of his mouth. The sight was a knife twisting in my gut. Luna winked playfully at me. Auntie Vivian won't get jealous, will she? It's just a cheek kiss. It's what everyone does where I was studying abroad. Before I could answer, Julian took the cake from her hands, chiding her gently. Do you think Vivian is like you? With a temper like a firecracker, ready to explode at any second? Vivian is incredibly good-natured. She'd never get jealous over something so small. In 7 years, I had never seen him so relaxed. It seemed this side of him was reserved only for Luna, who was 10 years his junior. A sour, heavy feeling rose in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Right, Vivian? Julian prompted, sensing Luna's slight unease and wanting me to reassure her. Yes, I said, my voice flat. Julian visibly relaxed. Luna giggled, a sly look in her eyes. Wow, you're really henpecked, aren't you, Uncle Julian? He didn't deny it. Well, I made your Auntie Vivian angry yesterday. I had to spend half the night coaxing her. The atmosphere between them was so intimate, so seamless, that I felt like a complete outsider. Luna smiled, her gaze shifting to me with faux innocence. Vivian, the song he used to soothe you, was it the same one he's been singing to lull me to sleep since I was a child? The air froze. Julian was speechless. So, the lullaby he sang for me was a hand-me-down, already used to comfort another woman. I surprised them both by asking coldly, how did you know he sang a song to soothe me? Oh, Luna feigned a flustered look, wrinkling her brow in mock regret. Are you angry, Vivian? Julian has raised me for over a decade. Our lives are completely intertwined. Of course I know his habits. Please don't mind me. I forced a bitter smile. Why would I? For my birthday meal, Julian cooked himself, making a spread of all Luna's favorite dishes. He kept putting food on her plate, his eyes soft with concern. You've lost so much weight. You must not have been eating properly this past month abroad. Luna feigned annoyance. Oh, Julian, why are you always fussing over me? She turned to me. Vivian, look at him. I said nothing. Julian sternly urged Luna to finish the pork rib soup I had made. She pushed the bowl away with a pout. Julian, there's ginger in it. I don't want it. As if it were the most normal thing in the world, Julian's expression softened. No wonder you're so thin. If you're this picky, who's going to take care of you when you get married? Despite his words, he immediately took the bowl and began patiently picking out every last sliver of ginger. It's fine, Luna chirped. I'll just depend on you for the rest of my life. Her words didn't sting. But watching Julian, a man who had never once shown me such patience, meticulously tending to her, sent a dull ache through my heart. In our 7 years together, he had never once picked the green onions I disliked out of my food. Yet for Luna, a single complaint was all it took. After drinking the soup, Luna stuck out her tongue playfully. Julian, you should be giving Vivian more food. You're making it look like I'm your girlfriend, not her. Julian shot her a warning glance, as if afraid of what she might say next. Vivian, don't listen to her nonsense. It's fine, I said calmly. I don't mind. A hint of guilt crossed his face. He put a piece of egg on my plate. Vivian, you don't look so well either. Eat some more. It had been 2 days since I'd returned from the hospital. Only now did he notice I was unwell. I picked up the egg. You forgot, I said simply. I'm allergic to eggs. Julian froze, embarrassed. He mumbled an apology and went to get me a fresh bowl of rice. Across the table, Luna's eyes curved into a triumphant smile, her malice now naked and undisguised. She leaned closer, her voice a venomous whisper only I could hear. Vivian, did you get the gift I sent you last night? Did. You like it? I picked it out especially for you. Her voice dropped even lower. Julian told me everything. About how your stepfather almost assaulted you. He said your mother died a horrible death trying to save you. After my mother died, the neighbors whispered. Some said I must have been indecent, that I had seduced my stepfather. Others called me a murderer. Even my own grandmother had screamed that I had killed her daughter, refusing to see me again before she died of a broken heart. I grew up living in the shadow of that past. It was Julian who had helped me open up, who I trusted with the ugliest, most painful parts of my story. And now, to please Luna, he had betrayed that trust. Vivian, she hissed, you're the one who indirectly killed your own mother. How can you live with yourself so peacefully? Blood rushed to my head. My vision went red. I grabbed my bowl of hot soup from the table and threw it directly in her face. Shut up! I screamed. Luna let out a piercing shriek, which immediately softened into a tearful apology. I'm so sorry, Vivian. I shouldn't have brought up your mother. I shouldn't have sent you the pearl earrings and made you angry. The bowl I was holding was knocked from my hand, shattering on the floor. Vivian, what the hell are you doing? Julian roared. A shard of porcelain cut his ankle, but he didn't even notice, rushing to check on Luna. Luna buried her face in his chest, sobbing. Julian, my face hurts so much. Don't blame Vivian, it's all my fault. I remembered a time when Luna's dog had bitten me. He told me not to overreact. When the wound was healing, he had simply said, Luna didn't mean for it to happen. But now, he held Luna protectively in his arms, his eyes burning with hatred for me. Apologize to Luna. Now. Why should I? Because you promised me last night that you wouldn't hold the earrings against her, he said, his voice dripping with self-righteousness. My own voice trembled. Julian, have you forgotten what you promised me? How could you tell someone else my story? His entire world was Luna. He looked at me, his gaze as cold as ice. So what if I did? Nestled in his arms, Luna's sobs grew louder. Julian, it hurts. What if my face is scarred? He stroked her hair, his voice gentle. It won't be. And if it is, I'll marry you. Hearing those words, it felt as if a giant hand had seized my heart and squeezed. The pain was sharp, suffocating. My eyes burned. With unshed tears. Do you have any idea what she just said to me? I asked, my voice shaking. She called me my mother's murderer. I thought, foolishly, that he would finally defend me. Instead, Julian just stared at me coldly, holding Luna as he walked towards the door. He paused and looked back. Was she wrong? He asked, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Aren't you a murderer? My breath caught in my throat. The world tilted on its axis. Tears finally broke free, streaming down my face. As they left, Luna looked back over Julian's shoulder and gave me a triumphant, mocking smile. When my mother died, my grandmother had pointed a finger at me and screamed, "You murderer." The neighbors looked at me with disgust. The mother died for her daughter, how dare the daughter still live? Only Julian had told me something different. Your mother's death was not your fault. Don't blame yourself. They don't believe you, but I do. And now, to protect another woman, he had thrown those words back in my face. The trust one had so freely given, the scars I had laid bare for him, had become the very weapon he used to destroy me. The large apartment was filled with 7 years of our memories. I walked from room to room, pulling our photos from their frames, snapping them in half, and tossing them into the trash. I packed my suitcase, methodically erasing every trace of myself from his home. Finally, I took out the creased sonogram report and placed it on his bedside table. I once believed that I would marry Julian, have his children, and be the happiest woman in the world. But his heart had long been occupied by someone else. He had broken promises, stood me up, and used my deepest pain to wound me, all for her. But it didn't matter anymore. From this day forward, Julian, I will never give you the chance to hurt me again. I was dragging my suitcase out the door when I ran right into him. He was back. "What are you doing with a suitcase?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. I tightened my grip on the handle. "The company is sending me on a business trip for a few days. I'll be back soon." He seemed to recall the events of yesterday, and chose his words carefully. "I was a bit harsh yesterday. But it was an emergency, and Luna is still young." "I understand," I said, my voice calm. My lack of argument seemed to unsettle him, but it also brought him a visible sense of relief. He helped me carry the suitcase to my car. "Have a safe trip." His eyes were gentle, just like they were when I first moved in with him all those years ago. I turned my head, avoiding his kiss. "I will." I started the car, thinking to myself, "Julian, we will never see each other again." Suddenly, he called my name. My heart gave a painful jolt. He leaned against my open window, a look of unprecedented urgency on his face. "Oh, right," he said. "Since you're going abroad, could you pick up that new couture necklace from Brande for Luna? She really likes it." The car sped away. Inside, I opened the voice recorder app on my phone and played the recording from the bar. The sound of his friends' mocking laughter and his own careless words filled the car, making our entire 7 years together feel like a pathetic joke. I had thought that after 7 years, he would have some genuine feelings for me. But when it came to Luna, I was always the backup plan. Just last night, while at the hospital with her face, Luna had sent me a picture, a pair of matching rings, the kind you can only have custom-made once in a lifetime for one couple. "So what if Julian marries you? I'm telling you, be smart and leave him. The person he loves is me. Don't you know he gave me a ring? Do you know what that means? Worldly obstacles can never defeat true love. I am the only wife in his heart." I let out a cold laugh. Was that really true? I forwarded the entire chat history, along with all her other taunting messages, to a contact at a major advertising firm. I was sure that by tomorrow, the billboards of the city would be filled with the story of Julian and Luna's scandalous affair. They thought they could hide their love from the world, using me as a shield? Julian. Luna. I was curious. Without me to hide behind, could your great love truly withstand the judgment of the world? Then, I pulled out my SIM card, snapped it in two, and threw it out the window. It wasn't until I stepped onto the soil of M country that reality finally set in. It had been years since I had seen my grandfather. His hair was almost completely white. He held my hand, lamenting my father's early death and my mother's tragic choice to remarry for my sake. "This old man's mind might not be as sharp as it used to be," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but it's not muddled." He squeezed my hand. "My child, what happened was not your fault." Besides Julian, he was the first person to say those words to me since my mother's death. My eyes welled up with tears. "Grandpa." After we ate, he asked about my situation back home. I told him only that Julian and I had broken up. My grandfather thumped his cane on the floor, his face flushed with indignation. "If I had been there, I would never have let that scoundrel bully you. You did the right thing breaking up with him. That kind of man doesn't deserve our Vivian." My heart, which had been slowly turning to stone since I discovered the truth about Julian and Luna, now felt only a weary sadness. "Don't worry, Grandpa. I won't go back. If it's okay, I'd like to stay here with you in M country for a few years." Hearing that his granddaughter would be staying with him, he was overjoyed. He then brought up the subject of the arranged marriage with a man named Sebastian Gu. He was careful, not wanting to pressure me. It was an arrangement made by our grandfathers. His family is very respectable, with businesses both here and back home. You won't be at a disadvantage with him, he explained. But of course, if my dear granddaughter doesn't like him, we can forget the whole thing. He held my hand, his eyes full of a lifetime of wisdom and love. For the first time in years, my cold, numb heart began to feel the warmth of family. If you approve of him, Grandpa, then I'm sure he's a good man. I agreed to meet Sebastian Gu, the eldest son of the Gu family. He was far more handsome than I had expected, tall and well-built, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. He was easily Julian's equal in looks. The moment I walked in, he noticed my pale complexion and immediately poured me a cup of warm ginseng tea. The weather in M country can be unpredictable. You should take care to stay warm, Ms. Shen. For so long, my life had revolved around Julian. I would make him breakfast every morning, warm his milk, and savor his good morning kiss. These habits couldn't be broken overnight, nor could the feelings be discarded in an instant. But sitting here with Sebastian, I was struck by how profoundly wrong I had been. Thoughtful men were not a species unique to Julian. Thank you, I said. Sebastian was direct. His English was flawless, and his voice was a calm, deep baritone that could have belonged to a radio host. So, Ms. Shen, shall we set our wedding date for the beginning of next month? Ms. Shen? His voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. I snapped back to the present, slightly embarrassed. I'm sorry, I was distracted. I took a breath. Yes, that's fine. But I need to be honest with you. I was in a relationship for 7 years. I don't mind, he said, cutting me off smoothly. I was taken aback. You don't? His gaze was deep and steady as he set down his teacup. To be in a relationship for 7 years and not get married, he said simply, only proves that he was not the right person for you. His words struck me like a bolt of lightning, clearing the fog in my mind. For 7 years, I had poured the best, most precious years of my youth into one person. I saw him as my savior, my destiny. But for him, love was never exclusive. You're right, I conceded. But if we get married, and we find that we're not compatible, I couldn't risk my whole heart again after such a devastating mistake. But Sebastian had already thought it through, like a patient hunter who knows his quarry. You don't need to worry about that, he said. If, after 1 year of marriage, we still have no feelings for each other, you are free to divorce me at any time. You will also be entitled to half of all marital assets. No wonder my grandfather approved of him. He was a man of his word, making an offer that was impossible to refuse. We registered our marriage that afternoon. The formal wedding ceremony would be at the beginning of the next month. I never expected that the day before the wedding, I would receive a text from an unknown number. Vivian, I know where you are. Wait for me. I'm coming to get you. It was Julian. Back home, Julian was going insane. He had come home to find her side of the closet empty, every trace of her gone. The photos of them together were shattered in the trash can. A day passed, then 2, then 3. A full week, and Vivian hadn't come back. When he tried to message her, he found he was blocked. When he called, her number was no longer in service. For the first time, he felt a hollow ache in his chest, a sense of profound loss. He remembered how she had looked that day, dragging her suitcase, so calm as she told him she was going on a business trip. This was different from her usual anger. Normally, a little coaxing was all it took for her to come back to him. Why was this time different? Was it because, in a moment of fury, he had called her a murderer? But he had already apologized, hadn't he? Maybe this was just another one of her games, a new way to get his attention? He clung to that thought, a sliver of hope to calm his rising panic. He searched the bedroom again, desperate for any clue she might have left behind. And then he saw it. On the bedside table. A folded piece of paper. The sonogram. The date on the report was her birthday. Vivian had been pregnant with his child. And she hadn't told him. A wave of absolute terror washed over him. He frantically replayed that day in his mind. He was supposed to be celebrating with her, but then Luna had texted, saying she was being followed by some creeps. He had rushed to her side, spent hours calming her down, and missed Vivian's birthday entirely, fobbing her off with a lie about working late. And then, the bar. He raced to the bar where he'd met his friends, demanded they pull the security footage from that night. The moment he saw her on the screen, his heart seized. She was standing just outside their private room, a happy, hopeful expression on her face. Then, as the sounds of their conversation reached her, her face froze, her body going rigid. Julian tried to remember the vile things he had said. His regret was a physical, crushing weight. He called all her friends, frantically asking where she was. One of them just laughed coldly. "Now that she's gone, you finally realize what you lost? It's too late." Clutching the sonogram report, Julian felt like he couldn't breathe. He couldn't imagine the depth of her despair, to leave him while pregnant with their child. He was drinking himself into a stupor when his friend called. "Julian. Have you seen the news?" He clicked the link. The headline was explosive, an illicit affair, the unethical love between a CEO and his adopted daughter. The article was filled with pictures of him and Luna, highlighting their ambiguous intimacy. It included Luna's provocative texts to Vivian. Even the "moon in my palm" scandal was exposed, revealing the hidden initials and proving it was never for Vivian at all. The public comments were brutal. "This CEO is a real piece of work. Cheating on his girlfriend of 7 years with the young girl he raised." The very tricks he had used to wound Vivian were now crashing down on him like an avalanche. Rumors flew through his company. In the middle of the chaos, Luna ran to him, sobbing. "Julian, it must have been Vivian. She leaked all of this. How could she do this? She's trying to ruin us." But the tenderness he usually had for her was gone, replaced by a seething irritation. "Those texts," he said, his voice dangerously low. "Did you send them to Vivian?" He was barely holding his anger in check. "Yes, but Julian, wasn't I just telling her the truth?" He grabbed her arm, his grip like iron, and slammed her against the door, his voice a raw, hysterical roar. "Who gave you permission to tell her that? If you hadn't provoked her, would she have left me while she was pregnant?" Luna stared at her reddening wrist, assuming, as always, that a few tears would make him forgive her. But this time, he shoved her out the door. "Get out," he yelled. "And don't let me see you again." She collapsed to the floor, her eyes filled with shock and hatred. "Julian, you can't blame this all on me," she screamed after him. "I didn't force you to cheat. You were the one who said you loved me but couldn't marry me, so you found that obedient little puppet Vivian to be your cover." His back to her, Julian froze. She was right. He had been afraid of the scandal if his feelings for his best friend's daughter were exposed. He had chosen Vivian because she was safe. But why, now that she was gone, did he feel this crippling sense of loss? The Chin Corporation's board convened an emergency meeting. They condemned his actions and the negative impact on the company's reputation. Amid the internal power struggles, they voted to remove him from his position as CEO. But Julian didn't care. His mind was elsewhere. After extensive searching, a friend finally told him that Vivian was in M country. "But I don't think you should go after her, because..." Julian cut him off. "If I sincerely beg for her forgiveness, she'll take me back. She has to. She's carrying my child." His eyes were bloodshot, filled with a desperate, possessive certainty. Blissfully unaware of all this, I was starting my new life. In the first month after marrying Sebastian, I went shopping with a new friend for her newborn baby girl. I picked out a few tiny outfits and then waited for her in a cafe while she used the restroom. "Vivian." The voice, so painfully familiar, sent a jolt through me. Julian stood there, looking like he had traveled a great distance. He was exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a scruffy beard. I thought of the parting gift I'd left him, the media scandal, and knew it must have caused him considerable trouble. A sense of satisfaction bloomed within me. Seeing the faint smile on my lips, Julian closed the distance between us and pulled me into a fierce embrace, his voice thick with relief. Vivian, I've missed you so much. I could no longer tolerate his touch. I shoved him away and slapped him hard across the face. Julian, are you insane? Yes, I'm insane, he cried, his eyes wild. I went insane thinking about you after you left, staring at the empty spaces in our home. He looked up at me, a dangerous, obsessive glint in his eyes as he stepped closer. Vivian, I admit it. I can't live without you. I love you. He stopped, the words catching in his throat. I imagined he was remembering all the times people had urged him to say those words to me, and how he never could, his gaze always drifting to Luna. I pulled back, my expression cold. Julian, I'm not a child anymore. I don't need to hear I love you from you now. His eyes reddened, his voice rising to a frantic shout. If you don't love me, then why did you keep the baby? Why are you out buying baby clothes? He still didn't get it. There was no way I would ever bring a child into the world with a man who didn't love me. The night I learned the truth about him and Luna, I had gone to the hospital and had a quiet, painless procedure. But now, let him believe what he wanted. His pain was no longer my concern. I held up my left hand, letting the diamond on my ring finger catch the light. Julian, I said, my voice clear and steady. I'm married. The words hit him like a physical blow. A sour, sharp pain radiated through his chest. Don't lie to me, he whispered, his face ashen. How could you? His words trailed off as tears began to fall. A hand extended a handkerchief to him. Julian looked up, thinking it was me, and found himself staring into the cool, slightly amused eyes of Sebastian. I apologize, Sebastian said, his voice smooth as silk. My wife seems to have made you cry. He slid his arm around my waist, a casual, possessive gesture. The matching wedding band on his finger was a final, blinding confirmation. Julian stood there, motionless, like a puppet with its strings cut. No, it's not possible, he stammered. Sebastian simply held up our marriage certificate for him to see. Anything is possible, he said, his tone dismissive. A cold wind seemed to whip through the cafe. Julian felt as if 1,000 needles were piercing his heart, and he could barely stand upright. He stared at me, his expression like that of a lost child. Vivian, he whispered, if I had come for you sooner, would things have been different? Men always loved to romanticize the what-ifs, as if it somehow proved the depth of their feelings. No, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. In that single moment, a wave of grief so powerful it stole his breath crashed over him. He watched as Sebastian and I walked away, but he no longer had the right to call out my name and make me stop. Once we were outside, I let go of Sebastian's arm and looked up at him. How did you know I was here? His timing had been a little too perfect. Sebastian glanced back toward the cafe, where my friend Julie was waving with a bright smile. Hey Vivian. You two have fun on your date. I'm heading home. It turned out that when Julie had returned from the restroom, she saw Julian cornering me and, worried I was in trouble, had immediately called Sebastian, who happened to be inspecting a nearby project. Good thing I was close, he said with a half-smile. Otherwise, would I have been at risk of losing my wife? I had to admit, the way he handed Julian the handkerchief was incredibly satisfying. I laughed. I'm not the type to go back for seconds, especially not for someone like him. I stepped closer to him. Right now, I said softly, you're my favorite. His words of praise made his ears turn a faint shade of red. Don't lie to me, he said, his voice pleased. I stood on my toes and kissed his cheek. I wouldn't lie to you. I smiled. And for the record, the way you handled him back there was very handsome. After that day, Julian finally seemed to give up. He wasn't one for relentless stalking, and my rejection had been absolute. He never bothered me again. My relationship with Sebastian, meanwhile, blossomed. To celebrate our first anniversary, he booked a table at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. As I was getting ready at home, I stumbled upon an old account on his computer for a radio podcast. I looked at the host's familiar username, and my mind started buzzing. It couldn't be. After my mother's funeral, I had locked myself away in a dark room for weeks. I was consumed by guilt and grief, and had started contemplating suicide. During that time, I stumbled upon a late-night radio host who went by the name Dawn. Online, protected by anonymity, I was able to talk about my trauma, telling my story over and over again. It was Dawn who had comforted me, who told me that my mother would want me to be happy, that she had protected me so that I could live a full and joyful life. I stared at the old ID on the screen. Dawn. Sebastian. The wheels of fate had started turning long before I ever knew. I laughed softly. How had I not realized it sooner? I rushed to the restaurant, my heart pounding with a new kind of excitement. I needed to tell him. You knew it was me all along, didn't you? I asked, trying to suppress the joyful tears that threatened to spill over. Sebastian gently wiped a tear from my eye and pulled me into his arms. I came back to the country to find you a long time ago, he murmured into my hair. But you were with Julian then. He let out a low chuckle. I guess fate was on my side. After all that, it brought me back to you. The fireworks that night were more brilliant than any I had ever seen. Everyone in the city knew they were for me, a gift from Sebastian. Perhaps we have to go through the wrong person to finally meet the right one. 6 months later, Sebastian and I moved back to our home country to expand his business. One day, Julian's old friend, Leo, stopped me on the street. Sebastian moved to intervene, but Leo pleaded, insisting he just needed to say one thing. I faced him, my expression placid. If you're here to speak on Julian's behalf, you can save your breath. Leo pulled out an envelope. Julian, he passed away. It was cancer. Apparently, after losing his position at the company 6 months ago, his life had spiraled. Luna, refusing to let him go, created one scandal after another. The final straw came when Julian, in a twisted attempt to recreate what he'd lost with me, had hired a model who looked like me. The model, thinking she had secured her position, went to taunt Luna. The two had a violent fight that ended with Luna hitting and killing the model with her car. At his annual checkup, Julian was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Leo had wanted to find me, to let Julian see me one last time, but Julian had refused. Don't bother, he'd said. She wouldn't want to see me. After 7 years of never understanding me, he was right about that one thing. I didn't want to see him. And? I asked Leo, my voice cold. You don't expect me to forgive him, do you? Leo flinched at my tone. He really did love you, Vivian. He wouldn't have left his entire estate to you and the child otherwise. I burst out laughing. So, it was about the child. Julian. Even in death, he still believed we had a child together. Leo stared at me, his eyes full of confusion and resentment. He thrust the inheritance documents into my hands and turned to leave. If you have any conscience at all, he said over his shoulder, you'll at least visit his grave. A warm hand rested on my shoulder as Sebastian draped his coat over me. I looked up into his dark, steady eyes. Sebastian, do you think I'm too heartless? He leaned down and kissed my forehead. When it comes to scum, he said softly, there's no such thing as being too heartless. He was right. So, Julian, I'll take your money. As for your grave, someone else can visit it.